Hey everyone, this here is the LEGO Star Wars 2023 Yavin 4 Rebel base set. It cost me $170, $170 US, and I built it live over on my Twitch channel. It comes with 1,066 pieces. In addition to the main base, we get here a pretty generous selection of 12 minifigures and droids, a very miniaturized yet still minifig compatible Y-Wing, and then some ground support equipment. Let's take a look at the base without a lot of stuff carefully posed around to fill up negative spaces and make it look more busy and complete and exciting than it actually is. This is the real thing. I did put some minifigures around there just for a consistent sense of scale, but this is really what you get. This is the main thing that you're paying for here. And honestly, the layout makes sense to me from the sake of play, or for the purpose of play. The overall shaping looks pretty good, and it looks like it is ready to have a lot of minifigures interacting around in spaces, and it looks like it has good access for us to get our human hands around there to interact with it. From the outside, I mean, it's not going to look too exciting. I think that it looks good enough here. You got the one main bay opening here. There are a couple of shooters right here for point defense, and then just, the main dark tan color, not a whole lot that's messing with that, just a little bit of gray in there, and then enough foliage has been spread about, I think, to get a good enough effect. They even give us a couple of these ferns, just one on either side, with the highly desirable, relatively new fern pieces in a regular green and lime green color. The tree with the observation post tower thing on it, it looks very, very simplistic, but honestly, just looking at the whole thing and kind of the resolution that's here, the level of detail that's here, and the complexity of the build of this 9+ set made for kids, this to me doesn't stand out as badly as I thought it would. There's just not a whole lot of contrast here, and this is able to you just rotate it around, and it's able to go into its lower position, but it just doesn't look that bad. And it does its job, right? This is not a UCS set. It doesn't need to have the maximum level of detail, just in my personal opinion. I thought this was going to bug me, and it doesn't bug me nearly as much as expected. Little briefing area here. Everything is cut at angles here, which, I don't know, kind of has a nice feel to it. Not everything being entirely blocky. This is a large sticker on an inverted tile piece, the 4x8, same one that's used on the UCS X-Wing, and before that on some Harry Potter books. These stickers are large, covering the entire panel. The stickers aren't as good as they used to be, in my opinion. It's very difficult to get them completely smooth because of the texture that's in them on the underside. You used to be able to get Lego's clear stickers completely flat, but now it's very difficult. You can use the Windex method, various tricks you can use, but you didn't have to use that to get a much better result, I think. Got the little water cooler over there, an additional sticker up on the wall, and there's access to this level via just a simple ladder. That's all that you really need to get the idea across. There's not a whole lot that you can do underneath here. There's a maintenance like a readout that's showing some damage to the Y-Wing that would be in this dock, this bay here. So this will fit in that space. So it's kind of like you're taking your ECU readout from the car to see what's wrong with it. This is a sticker right here, and then in the middle is the control for the two shooters out there. And there's also a stickered panel, so you can imagine that somebody's actually manning this. Just a little bit of storage there. And above there is the celebration hall, although it's not really a celebration hall, it's just the stage area. Now you can put a bunch of minifigures here. They actually show that on the box in a very carefully staged picture, but it's not easy to get minifigures in there. These side bits don't open up. The front doesn't open up without doing a little bit of disassembly here, and there's just not a whole lot of space for you to get your fingers in there. So I think that the most you can reasonably expect a normal person to put here would be probably about half as many as they show, and without having a place for the audience or anything, this just doesn't have the impact, I think, of what it's intended to represent. This is a set that's very much focused towards kids, and yet this is designed really as a display space, which is just kind of confusing to me because it doesn't play well and it doesn't add to the fun, even though there's a nice shaped space here. Above there, at least you got the communications little transceiver, so that's nice. You can rotate that around and also angle it up and down, and there's just the kind of the suggestion that it's hidden away here. On the other side, this upper level is fairly symmetrical to where you have the briefing room over here, and you can just rotate the little table display that's showing, when the Death Star is going to be able to actually get a shot on the base. That's all that's up here other than just another panel that's on a sticker. And then once again, there's access through just the simplest means with a ladder, which again, I think is perfectly fine. At least there's something. A little bit of storage down here. I don't know if that's supposed to represent like a little bit of Bacta. Is this supposed to be a medical bay? There's nothing else going on in this space whatsoever, so it's kind of up to your imagination, but at least there is some room to pose minifigures down there, and that does bring us to the other side. And I want to show you how you can change the layout of this a little bit for both play and display. So the sides are able to open up a bit, and it becomes relatively flat on the front. This also widens its appearance, which I think is good for just a shelf kind of longer term display. This just looks better to me. It looks bigger than it did originally, even though a lot of that is just with this wall part that's sticking out. Like this I think is a useful minor shift of the overall layout of this. But you can also remove these entire side sections and then ultimately arrange them differently if you want to. It also allows you to get in there and put minifigures in these spaces a little bit better, gets you easier access to a couple of clips on either side where you can put minifigure accessories, and ultimately these can also be just placed in different parts and start creating the idea of more of a complete closed base that you just have parts of. See, I think this is super simple what's been done to change this, but it fundamentally changes how this looks, feels, and can be played with. You can also remove the upper section over here and potentially, use that as its own thing, as its own section. Now it's down at the ground, this becomes more of a hanger kind of feeling. It just starts to feel more complete to me, more fun, more useful. The ground equipment consists of a couple of the Starfighter base equivalents of wheel chocks, and then just a small step ladder to get up into the Y-wing. And this is nice. It's olive green in color. It's a little like munitions cart. It can also be used to transport people around because they have some studs around the edges. You just put your operator on the front. It's directly from the movie. And though it's basic, at least it does something. It's not the most exciting looking design of this sort of thing, but it does its job. This Y-wing also basically does its job pushing the miniaturization trend farther than they've ever gone with it up to this point for things that are intended to be minifig compatible and not just micro fighters, which are also minifig compatible, but this is more of like a very small play scale. Overall shaping here I think works out okay, and level of difficulty and complexity of the build works out pretty nicely. All the major things are here. You got the turrets, you got the bay for an astromech, which surprisingly doesn't stand out too much, and you can put a pilot in there, and they do have to lean back way too much. However, there's even a little console with the targeting display at the front, which is a 2x2 very retro styled printed brick. Really good quality print there. I like that. I'm glad that was included. And they've also got some playability here with a couple of the spring-loaded shooters. I just don't have the bolts in there right now. There's a little bit of actual greebling detail in this. All of this is done differently and nicely. The neck is too short though. That's the only thing that's wrong here, I think, for something that's super miniaturized. They even have this clear brick on the underside to make sure that it's nice and stable when you put it on the ground, and when you put the astromech in place, nothing's going to collapse there. I really would have liked to see a print though for this Speed Champions relatively new 4-stud wide canopy. That definitely reduces the kind of the fidelity of this, but I think more than anything, it just needs more length in this section right here. Everything is just kind of, I don't know, it's like the neck has really been compressed down Here are Luke, Han, and Chewie, and the canonical injustice of Chewie not getting a medal continues here. These medal pieces themselves are not new. I believe they're the exact same mold from the old collectible minifigure series, the Olympic medal piece, but a new color and exclusive print for those. There's also one single spare included. The printing for the torso for Luke here is pretty excellent. We're lacking opacity on the torso for Han. Overall, I think these figures look pretty good to me, though. I think that this hairpiece does work for me. For some folks, it doesn't. The younger Han face is fine to me. Doesn't bug me. For A New Hope, Harrison Ford was relatively younger there. I think it works out okay. So yeah, I'm generally satisfied with these. Here's Celebration Leia, General Dodonna, and Observation Post Dude, Rebel Fleet Trooper, they call him here, with a nice build for the, rangefinder, and then I don't even know what the stick thing was that he was carrying up there. I haven't looked it up on the wiki. If you have looked it up on the wiki recently, good on you, but it's just a stick looking thing, right? Dodonna looks good head to toe. I think Leia looks good head to toe. You get another one of the silver blaster piece. There is printing on the back here, which is good all the way down. Alternate expression as well. And all of these are double faced heads. Here are the Battle of Yavin's Red Leader and Gold Leader, as well as an unnamed Rebel ground crew member. I always like these super detailed helmets. I always think that they look really good. However, compared to the previous version of this helmet here, the Gold Leader Vander helmet, I feel like this one just doesn't have the fidelity, doesn't have the quality. I feel like the last one just looked better, especially in these prints up here. This really could use more green as well, but most importantly, like previously, that whole grid pattern looked so much better, I thought. Feels like this is a step backwards. Obviously, these two are using the exact same flight suit with the same prints. Like, there's good graphic design that goes on there, I think. Maybe the prints could have a little bit more opacity, but they're not too bad. Some of the fine details, if you compare it to pictures of the actual props, some of the fine details had to be reduced down, compromised to fit into this small space because of the minimum line size and everything. And I personally am okay with that. I have to have some level of reasonability. These have the exact same heads as well, unfortunately, but I'm not too mad about that. Personally, they're just intended to represent pilots that can be swapped around. But it would have been nicer to have something different, especially since they have done some different ones in the past that I think should still be available. And then at least we do get two faces for this crew member. That's good. And finally, the droids C-3PO, R2-D2, and R2-BHD. You get the nice arm printing for C-3PO here, and you also get the back printing, which is relatively new, for R2-D2. However, we don't get the silver for the leg other than just a little bit of print for C-3PO. And as you can see here, no print on the back of BHD. That's okay, but just using the plain gray for the main body looks poor around the back. The printing of the head here is shockingly good. It's nice and consistent, and it's actually fairly flat, which is very unusual, at least in the Americas region. I've heard of them being usually significantly better anywhere but the Americas. It's like the Mexico factory does the worst for that, if they are printed there. Whatever factory supplies the printing jobs for this region of the world, Western Hemisphere. But there's a little bit of wonkiness to the R2-D2 once again, which is more what I generally expect these days. I just expect poor quality there. It's not one of the worst, that's for sure, though. Here are the rest of the pieces from the set. Like I said, two of these spring-loaded shooter bolts should have been in the Y-wing, and then these are extra shots for the point defense cannons. There's the extra celebration medal for Chewbacca, so at least you could drape it over one of his hands if you want. And this is what the sticker sheet looked like. Everything here was clear-backed. Again, the price I paid for this was $170 US. It's 170 euros, 150 pounds UK, 220 Canadian dollars, which equates to approximately 166, 167 US dollars. First of all, overall, I think this is a pretty decent play set. I think it's better than we thought, myself included, based on the pictures. I think that just looking at it as what it is, a playset for kids, I think it's laid out pretty well. I think it's designed pretty well, and obviously it has a great selection of figures. I would have liked to see a little bit more density of detail on the inside, though. More things, suggesting things that the figures could interact with, especially down on the lower levels there. There's really just a lack of stuff. Just a handful of additional pieces to suggest like computer panels with beeps and boops, just reuse some existing prints and stuff. I think would have gone a long way to make this much more interesting, much more engaging, and to feel more complete. That said, as far as value is concerned here, I do still feel like this is overpriced, although the figure selection really, really helps with the value. This is pretty good, just needs a little bit of adjustment to its design. But what I like to do, what I've always wanted to do for this one was compare it to Darth Vader's castle. It's got that similar shape and a similar size. When I first suggested that comparison, I got very rapidly a fair amount of feedback saying, "Oh, Darth Vader's castle is the greatest thing ever created. Don't you compare this sub-Duplo level piece of trash to that?" Well, I'm gonna do it anyway, because Darth Vader's castle today would be $155 US. This would be $155 US today. Remember, it only came with just the little minimal sized advanced tie, and then less than half as many minifigures as this. So when you compare these, there's a little bit more height with the spire, which is there's nothing there. This is all hollow. So it just has slightly longer plates at the top as far as its height, and this one does have a little bit more density of detail on the inside. I will definitely say. Level of playability between the two, as far as just the structures are concerned, it's very similar. This one's less configurable, but I think overall, playability is similar. But again, this one has way more figures. It's got a base that's spread out more. You can configure it into a way that makes it more exciting, as I showed you earlier on. So I think that all told, at least this compared to that, which is the closest analog, I think, to it from the pre bad days, the pre ridiculous inflation days. This doesn't look that bad on paper. Just apples to, I don't know, pears kind of comparison. If you thought that the Darth Vader's castle was a good value, I think you have to give this a pass as a good value. Even if you don't like this, even if you loved the Vader's castle, just looking at the value that's there, I feel like the prices line up. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all, because I think that Vader's castle is, at $155 is overpriced. And I think that this at $170 is overpriced. Even in 2023, like really, really pushing myself, really, really stretching as far as I can possibly go without just wanting to ban myself from the internet. I can go to 150 on this. It hurts, but I look at the figures, I look at the amount of stuff. I'll allow 150, but I really would have wanted more detail, even at that. On sale, I would like to see it get down to like 130 or so, So definitely still feels overpriced to me, but at least it doesn't feel as bad. The whole thing, the whole experience of this does not feel as bad as it did when I first saw those official pictures come out. The thing that I think is most off about this is the suggested age range of 9+. This feels more like a 6 or 7, 7+. The most complicated thing here would just be the number of smaller pieces used in the Y-wing, but all this over here is really simple. I feel like it's more like a 7+ set. So I think just the age targeting there is just off on the box. It's just a number, but it helps to kind of set the mindset for evaluation, So as a 9+ set, it doesn't feel as good as it does to me as a 7+ set. Most parents don't look too carefully at those numbers anyway, which is correct. They need to understand their own kids and look at the product and make their own decisions based on that. lot of words about this. Ultimately, not bad. Overpriced, yes, not by a ridiculous amount compared to things that we've gotten before and compared to other things that are on the market right now. I wish the design was just a little bit better, maybe like 15%. And the price was cut even more than that. Those are my thoughts for now, though, based on spending some quality time with it. Again, the build was done over on my Twitch channel. You can follow that. It's completely free. You don't need an app or anything. It's just like YouTube, but it's a much better place for live streaming. We have a very nice, very positive, very level-headed community over there. It's fun. It's a good place to hang out, which is why I spend over 120 hours a month streaming mostly Lego content over there and a little bit of building other plastic-based things. Thank you very much for watching. Hope that this was of some value to you, and I'll talk to you again soon.